Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we need to talk about some pretty terrible news with Minnesota Wild 9th overall pick, Marco Rossi. Now, Marco Rossi, in my opinion, was one of the best prospects in the 2020 draft with 9th overall to the Minnesota Wild. I thought it was an absolute steal. He played in the World Juniors and was expected to play for the Minnesota Wild in year one and be a potentially big part of this Minnesota Wild team. Same thing with Kirill Kaprizov, and that was just not the case. He had an upper body injury, and we really didn't know what was going on until today when all the news has broke out, and it isn't exactly pretty. So, what is going on with Marco Rossi right now, and should we really be concerned long-term about what Marco Rossi is going through? Watch till the end for all the news and all the bad news as well, and hit that subscribe button if you're new. 65% of the people that are watching the videos are not subscribed, so every bit helps for more news videos just like this one. Now, this is a pretty serious topic, but I felt it definitely needed to be talked about today because there is a lot to go through here, especially Marco Rossi, who's one of my favorite prospects in the NHL. Now, Michael Russo, Minnesota Wild specialist for The Athletic, dropped an absolute bomb of a tweet last night that was super fascinating, to say the least. Now, to give some context, Marco Rossi was diagnosed with COVID-19 back in this last November. He eventually was able to play a game in Austria and then, of course, played with Austria in the World Juniors. And he was a player that, again, was projected to be a player that could be NHL ready and could be with the Minnesota Wild. And I thought, especially during the draft process, besides Alexis Lafreniere, could have been the most NHL ready prospect in that draft. And I thought definitely could have had a pretty solid rookie campaign. And it just has not gone that way. Before actual training camp started, he was about a week to week with an upper body injury, and he ended up being sent home to Austria for really no reason whatsoever. And then we get the official announcement today about why that reason, or why that actually came about. Now, from Michael Russo, no paraphrasing, this is the exact tweet. Minnesota Wild acknowledged for the first time that Marco Rossi's upper body issue is complications from having COVID-19 in November. There's no timetable for his return, but he'll return to Minnesota in March. How he was cleared by Zurich, then Team Austria, is my big question. Now, this is absolutely humongous with Marco Rossi because, again, we really didn't know what was going on with Marco Rossi, with that upper body injury, what it was actually going to be, but it seems like he's still having complications and still having the effects of COVID-19, even from recovering it back in November, which is really interesting news when you think about how that's supposed to be when we talk about players that got COVID and are recovering from it now. Sometimes it just doesn't fully recover, and Marco Rossi's 19 years old. He's a super young kid, and it shouldn't really be happening to players that young, but it is, and it's still lingering on, which is obviously bad news for the Minnesota Wild. But for Marco Rossi, obviously, first and foremost, wishing the best for him. Hopefully he's able to recover fully from that and get the time that he needs to fully get around that and get back to 100% health. First and foremost, that should be the priority. But it's definitely fascinating that a player who had COVID-19, a professional athlete, a guy who works as hard as Marco Rossi does, is still having the effects of that. And you could tell with the World Juniors, at least, there was something a little bit off for me. And I was able to watch a little bit of that first game that he played in Austria, and there really wasn't that much going on. It seemed like something really wasn't clicking with Marco Rossi, and he wasn't really playing great. Now, some people will say that he was on Team Austria, and they all suck. But guys like Marco Kasper and guys like Cena Peters are pretty solid forwards and no slouches whatsoever. They're decent players that you could definitely work around, and it didn't really seem like Marco Rossi was gelling with anybody, and it didn't seem like he was playing his best hockey, to put it simply. And I kind of chalked it up to him being from the OHL and not really playing any serious hockey for quite a few months, and that obviously could still be one of the reasons, but it seems like he was still having complications from COVID. He was still feeling the effects of that, and with the way he was playing, where it kind of seemed like he had less tempo, less pace, it definitely explains at least a little bit of his performance issues so far. Now, I think what will be the best case scenario for Marco Rossi especially is that this is just a thing that can recover, that he can recover from fully and actually get past. I mean, the last thing I think that you would want Marco Rossi to have is to still have the rest that he needed and still have something lingering that he will have for the rest of his life. That can happen with COVID. That can be a possibility, and some people, when it comes to athletes especially, seem to forget that sometimes these players can still be effective. Sometimes it's not always smooth sailing ceiling, and some players can have it pretty badly. And for Marco Rossi, who's 19, it seems like that can be a pretty bad thing. Now, the worst thing that I want that can happen, and I'm really wishing is not the case, is that there might be like a heart issue or like a lung issue perhaps with his breathing, or there's something that might be a longer term thing, and I think that could be just disastrous for Marco Rossi. And I'm really hoping that that's not the issue here, because if it is, that's just so scary to think about. But if it is something that he can fully recover from, it seems like he'll be given the time to actually recover from that. He'll be back in Minnesota in March, and they'll probably do a lot of tests then to see what the problem is, if there is still a problem. So I'm really hoping Marco Rossi has a pretty wishful recovery, and that we will see this eventually go away, because as I've talked about a lot on this channel, Marco Rossi has so much talent, and I thought was a top 5 pick in the 2020 draft. Now, again, when we look at what Marco Rossi was able to accomplish last year in the OHL, he was absolutely terrific. In 56 games, got 39 goals, 81 assists for 120 points. And it seemed like after he got COVID and once he went to the NLA and the World Juniors, again, there was something a little bit off there. In terms of his stats in the NLA, he got 1 assist in 1 game. And in the World Juniors for Team Austria, 0 points in 4 games played. And with Sina Peters, he was the lone goal scorer in that tournament. So obviously the points, you don't have to look at that too much. But I think in terms of the play, he was still pretty disappointing. And I'm really hoping that, again, there's no long-term effects here, because the talent and the skill of Marco Rossi is just so freaking incredible. He was such a fantastic young talent, still is a fantastic young talent, and is a guy that for the Minnesota Wild, I think has potential to be a first-line center in the NHL. Such an amazing work ethic, such an amazing hard worker as well. He's a player that I just love watching, and I'm really hoping that he's able to get past this stuff too. It's scary stuff. It's stuff that, especially for any 19-year-old, they should not have to go through, but it seems like it's a lingering thing, and let's hope for right now at least that it is just a short-term deal as well. If this is long-term, then for the Minnesota Wild, it's looking like a pretty big disaster, just in terms of this whole situation. I'm really hoping that's not the case, but it is a possibility. But again, wishing all the best of luck for Marco Rossi going forward to get past this stuff, because it's pretty crazy what's going on, and especially for athletes, as I said before, don't underestimate this stuff. I mean, obviously athletes are probably the most likely players to get rid of it and to get past it, but there still will be cases, especially of even younger players, that will have complications because of it. And for a player like Marco Rossi, it's definitely been difficult so far. He was a player that should have been on the NHL, should have been with the Minnesota Wild for this first year, and now will have to go back to Austria to just rest until March. Not exactly an ideal situation, but hopefully for the Minnesota Wild and for Marco Rossi, a situation that after all this, hopefully when he gets rested up and gets all better, they can move past from and hopefully have Marco Rossi on for the second half of this season. But if you can, down in the comments down below, get some get well soon messages in the comments. I would really appreciate that too. Give him some good luck, and hopefully for Marco Rossi and for the Minnesota Wild, they can get past this and fully recover from this situation. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thanks so much for tuning into this kind of news roundup when it comes to Marco Rossi and the Minnesota Wild. If you did enjoy, though, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that notification bell as well. Make sure you let me know in the comments, what do you think about this whole situation with Marco Rossi, and what are you thinking about his impact so far from the Austria team to now the Minnesota Wild, and what do you think of this whole chaotic situation too. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get the news out there, everyone, and click on this card for all my hockey prospects content right on one playlist. My name is Nathan. Thanks so much for watching. Get well soon, Marco. I'm really wishing you the best, buddy. Everybody's appreciated, though. Thanks so much, all you guys, for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next video or stream. Goodbye.